Welcome, everyone, to Post Crisis Chat, the world's finest edition. I'm your co host, Bryce, and with me today is my ever present co host.
Hi, it's Randy here. If you're a first time viewer, welcome. Do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification so that you can be notified next week when we upload our next episode.
It's such a small thing to do, but it really helps us grow the channel. If you're not a first time viewer, welcome back, and thank you so much for being here.
Please be advised, we will be talking about decades old spoilers in the issue we are discussing today. And speaking of that issue, today we are talking about Batman number
402.
Written by Max Allan Collins. Pencils are by Jim Starlin, with inks by Jim Starlin also. And then the colors are by Daina Graziunas, and the cover is also by Jim Starlin. So first off, Bryce, I want to talk a little bit about the creators on this title. Have you ever seen the movie Road to Perdition?
I have not.
Okay, well, it's a reasonably famous movie. The reason I brought it up is because the same guy who wrote this Batman comic also wrote Road to Perdition, the graphic novel series, which is what they used to adapt into a movie. He goes by the name Max Allan Collins, and this was his first issue ever of Batman. He did a few other issues, and they're usually considered to be some of the better issues of Batman. And then we have Jim Starlin on the art. So, do you remember? You've seen the Avengers movies, right? And the big bad guy called Thanos.
Absolutely. Familiar with
Okay.
those at least.
Starlin is the man who invented Thanos. He wrote the Infinity Gauntlet, which is and illustrated the Infinity Gauntlet, which is what they based the Avengers movie on, and that was all Jim Starlin. So here he is over here slumming it on a Batman book.
Gotta say, it shows. There's a lot going on between the art and the story. Probably one of my favorite ones so far.
Nice. Let's talk about this cover. The details on the cover are great. Batman choking out Batman? Hell yeah, I want to see what's up with that. Also, the thing that is most interesting to me in regards to the art are how big both of the Batman's ears are. They're much taller than they normally look. And before we started, Bryce was asking if this was normal for Starlin, and my answer is I don't know. But I did notice the giant ears as well. Otherwise, this cover, 5 of 5, no notes. I like it.
I think it's awesome. Immediately got me interested in what was going on. I was immediately invested.
Good deal. So we get on the first page what looks like almost like a touched up photograph. We have a Batman hanging off a building, and the narrator tells us he is looking for a specific human target. Given the nature of the cover, we know that there's going to be two Batmans in the book, right? And so I can say, now that I've read the issue, that this Batman is not the real one. Next, we get a... Well, here, I'll give you a chance to comment on this page.
I agree with everything you say. The one thing I noticed mainly was that touched up photo, which I thought was a cool artistic choice.
Yeah, and that could have gone badly, but in this instance it didn't. I think it looks great. I dig what they were doing here. So next, we get a cold open with Dick and Jane, who are, quote, slumming it tonight because they're into rock and roll. They've been to a concert tonight, and they are discussing it as they walk along the boulevard there. Then Dick and Jane get mugged. The mugger doesn't really like the way they talk, so he hits Dick in the mouth with a wrench.
I love the artwork. It also sets up the story to come pretty well. The one thing I will say I've noticed about the artwork, and maybe something to keep an eye on as we go through, is a lot of the same face pops up on a lot of different characters. The green shirt henchman's kind of wearing it in this page, but that face will pop up time and time again. I promise you in this issue.
Interesting. I hadn't caught on to that, but yeah, I'm going to keep an eye out for it. I do want to note also, in that top panel, there is a lot of background, and the background is detailed. That was something I kind of had an issue with in the last issue. No pun intended. But Starlin's really good with the backgrounds.
I was just going to say I took time to go back in between the issues when we discussed last week compared to this, and the difference in artwork is just huge. It's so much more in depth and detailed. They took the time for almost all the backgrounds. There's a couple of voids, but I think they're artistic voids.
I
Nicely
agree.
done.
And I know you being new to this don't realize this, but Jim Starlin is a legend in the comic book industry, and this is one of the reasons he is a legend. His art is just that good.
I really appreciate it for sure.
Next, we see Wrench Guy has a creepy porn stash looking friend with him who seems to be threatening to assault Jane. We see a solid sound effect hit, and Porn Stash realizes Wrench Guy has been taken out by the Batman. We find our Wrench Guy's name is Spider. How quaint. I would like to call out the art here. The backgrounds aren't super great. No doubt they were on a rush deadline, but the facial expressions on this page are spot on. You can tell the menace, fear, and shock that the characters are feeling.
I totally agree. I think the backgrounds are detailed enough, but the faces really sell what's going on in this page, in these panels.
You know, something I kind of didn't give it credit when I was making the notes, but that cityscape behind Batman in that light blue color, that is quite a bit more detailed, I think, than I realized the first time I was reading it. So I'm gonna say that's pretty good. Maybe take back some of my criticism. So then we get a page with a great action scene of Pornstache and Batman fighting. Batman notes that he broke Spider's neck and proceeds to do the same thing to Pornstache. This is a level of violence that we don't usually see from Batman. He's usually not afraid to break bones, but normally he doesn't leave people paralyzed on purpose. That's the note I made at the time I was reading, and we actually find out later in the book that when he broke their necks like that, he actually killed them.
This was surprising to me as well. I think I always assume next break-in is a fatal move, so I kind of assumed these guys died, which was what made it even more shocking to me,
Hmm.
honestly.
Next, we see Batman riding a motorcycle, which is a little odd for him, while the narrator tells us that he has wondered how it would feel to go over the line, and Batman thinks it feels good. Though again, he usually doesn't ride a motorcycle. Then we see Batman go into a house that is clearly not Wayne Manor. Batman takes his cowl off, and there is someone beneath who is clearly not Bruce Wayne. Thus, our cover is revealed to actually be relevant to the story. Sometimes that doesn't happen. The narrator also mentions that Batman has taken an oath to serve and protect, which is interesting because while Batman has taken an oath to fight crime, to quote, serve and protect is a very specific promise usually associated with cops. The art on this page is great. You get a lot of details on the buildings, the fence, and the shelves inside the imposter's Batcave.
Ton of artwork on this. This must have been meticulous. I took a good second to appreciate the background in the house, like the little chemistry lab they got going on there. Even the Batman on a motorcycle. I'm pretty sure that's a meme. Feel like I've seen that panel be used as a meme before with him on the motorcycle up there. But great artwork all around. I actually didn't pick up on the serve and protect thing though, so that's really interesting to hear. Now having read the full issue, that's some nice foreshadowing for sure.
Definitely. And then next we see Batman swinging through the sky. The bat signal is in the background. The narrator tells us it's 3 a.m. Even at this late hour, Batman still answers the call. Batman reaches the source of the bat signal, and there's someone yelling at him through a megaphone to hold it right there. Men standing nearby clearly have guns drawn, though they, at the moment, don't seem to be pointed at Batman. The art on this page is a little lacking in the background at the top of the page, but I think the bottom of the page more than makes up for it. I really like that Batman silhouette on the bottom too. The inking with the source of the light and what parts are highlighted, it's just perfection in my opinion.
I think it draws attention right where it needs to be. There's not too much going on up top. It's more of like an internal dialogue, and then you get to what's really going on. It's almost like he's distracting himself and not seeing what he's getting himself into, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, because normally when Batman gets the bat signal, it's like, hey, Commissioner Gordon's going to be there and he's going to have a nice conversation with his friend. Then Commissioner Gordon's going to turn the other way and Batman's going to disappear on him like he always does.
Yeah, definitely subverting some expectations there.
On the next page, they actually do start shooting at Batman. I was a little shocked at this. Batman notes that it was Deputy Commissioner Barnes who was manning the bullhorn and the bat signal, not the expected Commissioner Gordon, who is Batman's old trusted friend. Then we switch to Gordon's home, and Gordon and Batman are watching a newscast that says Batman is wanted in connection with murder. Apparently, breaking the neck of the two muggers also killed them, which I kind of talked about that earlier. I didn't realize right at the moment that he killed them, but this is where I picked up that they were killed. The newscast also mentions that both muggers were accused of murder previously and got out of the trial on a technicality. The background on Commissioner Gordon's home is just outstanding. The art on this is so great, especially compared to the last issue.
Absolutely. The last issue is what really makes it shine, obviously, in comparison. I also love the page break. Just the driving Batmobile with his thoughts. I thought that was a cool touch. But yeah, this episode, this issue just continues to show out with that artwork.
I also want to mention the colors on this too, because the colors are bright and vibrant and well placed. Everything just looks like it's supposed to.
I really dig the inclusion of the pink in this issue. It's a nice contrast.
It was the 80s. There was a lot of neon running around.
I'm down.
Then we see Batman and Gordon discussing the situation, and Gordon notes that Barnes wants Gordon's job. Gordon also notes that he knows Batman would not kill, and that there is a killer posing as Batman, which, just shows how good the friendship is between the two of them. That Gordon's like, I know that's not you. I don't care what the evidence says. It's not you. I get it.
It left a lot to my imagination, knowing that Barnes was there and not Gordon. Like, how did that conversation go down? I'm sure Gordon refused to arrest the Batman. It was cool to kind of just build out that whole interaction in my head between them.
Like with modern comics, these days they tend to be what they call more decompressed. And with modern comics, you probably would have had a good 6 issues for this story, maybe 4 to 6 issues. And you would have had 3 to 4 pages devoted to that conversation between Gordon and Barnes. Maybe even, several touchstones where Barnes is threatening to take Gordon's job or heavily implying that Gordon's not doing a good job and he could do a better job. But this, you're right, it kind of leaves it to the imagination. I realize you're a newer reader, but given those kind of two descriptions, which one do you think you would prefer?
I think now I'm locked in, right? I started here. This is what I prefer. I think initially it was a challenge trying to, like, the little time jumps, little things you are assumed to have known. But now that I know what I'm looking for, it's more of a fun game to kind of just build that out yourself. And then everybody else is getting a different story with their comic because everyone else is building out a different interaction, different what if. It's cool.
I dig it. Yeah, I know we're going to be talking about the art a lot on this book because it's Jim Starlin. It's what he does. But I want to go back to the coloring because the bottom portion of this page, you've got the city skyline back there. You've got Batman swinging away, and the sky is pink. And I think I'm figuring out why the sky is pink. In some cases, the sky almost looks pink if you're in a really big city and there's like clouds and the city's lights reflecting off the clouds, especially if there's a lot of neon and things like that, which us living in Reno and having visited Vegas, there's lots of neon around. And it can actually look like this on nights where there's just low clouds in the sky. And I think that's just represented really well here.
I love it. And it continues to, everyone's building out their own stories. What's going on in this world? How am I going to fill in the gaps?
Next, Bruce Wayne, Jason Todd, and the faithful caretaker Alfred are sitting around the breakfast table discussing the situation. Bruce instructs Alfred to call around to every costume shop in the area and inquire about renting a Batman costume. Then we head down to the Batcave where Batman's, quote, massive computer. Wait, are we compensating for something there, Bruce? Anyway, the massive computer provides a lead for the crime fighter. Computer spits out the name of the husband whose wife was killed by the two muggers who had their necks broken. As a reminder, the two muggers got off on that first killing of the wife on a technicality we found out earlier. During the conversation, Jason implies it might not be so wrong if Batman did kill from time to time.
Jason with his hot takes. Always with his hot takes.
And another thing I really liked about this page in particular was on that top panel, we get we're looking down at the breakfast table, but then it's got the heads inserted with their dialogue around the elements of the breakfast table. And I just think that panel is so well composed.
Absolutely. The artwork on even that tiny little panel below it is so above and beyond. It just continues to shine through. I forget the gentleman's name, but he's wildly talented.
Yeah, Jim Starlin. And then even just in the bottom left panel, the architecture of Wayne Manor, that looks great. He put so much detail and work into just the house, and it's so good.
Alfred, all of it. I will say some of those faces are starting to show back up again. Yeah, those prominent cheekbones and close together eyes.
Yeah, Jason's face, bottom right panel, is a little off. The faces are mostly expressive. That one, the bottom right, is a little bit of a nitpick.
Totally. And I'm nitpicking because there's almost nothing wrong with the artwork in this book.
Exactly. Bruce then tells Jason that they are not murderers, and that is a line they must never cross. Jason points out that Batman has killed before, but Batman says it was only done in self-defense. Bruce also questions whether or not he should be involving Jason as a sidekick at all. Jason says Bruce should definitely let him be involved. So this was kind of news to me. I'm a big Batman fan, and I read Batman a lot through the 90s and through the early aughts, and not so much in the 2010s, but I've been reading a lot more Batman lately. And I was unaware that he had ever killed in self-defense. I've seen him kill animals once or twice in self-defense, but I can't recall ever seeing him kill people in self-defense. So that was actually a little shocking to me.
I think the most shocking thing to me on this panel was just the giant penny. I'm sure there's a story there. It was really distracting. I'm like, what is going on?
The dinosaur, the
And then
giant
Batman.
penny.
Yeah, he's got a lot of mementos, a lot of big mementos.
Yes.
But I guess when you have a mansion, you got the space for him. Artwork's awesome. Weird Batman face in the bottom left, but otherwise really strong as well.
I see what you mean, yeah. Bruce says that if Jason and him are no better than the lice who snuff out human life like it's worth nothing, then it's time for Batman to hang up his cowl. Alfred approaches and says that every single Batman costume in Gotham has been stolen. And then in the next panel, we see fake Batman with a closet full of Batman suits.
Big plans.
Yeah. He stole them all. Because that's how Batman would get his suit. He would steal them. It totally makes sense, Mr. Fake Batman. Anyway. Next, we have one of those big jumps that kind of leaves you wondering where we're at. We see Bruce Wayne knocking on the door of Howard Despond, the husband of the woman who was previously murdered by the muggers. Again, the muggers who got off on a technicality. Bruce says that the Wayne Foundation has a victims aid program and wants to talk to Howard about it. Howard talks about the murder of his wife and says that there was a nice young detective who cared about bringing the murderers to justice, but no one else seems to care. Howard once again mentions the muggers walked away from his wife's murder on a technicality. Howard says he is glad the muggers are dead, which, is a pretty cold sentiment, but I can kind of understand why he feels that way.
Absolutely. Sounds like this man's been through it. Took me about half the page, though, to realize that he was the previous victim's husband, though, with that kind of little time jump thing they're doing.
I think I had to go back and read earlier, because I think they mentioned the wife's name, And I was like, who is this guy? And I kind of had to go back a couple of pages and figure out who it was. But that can actually be the mark of a good comic is, wait, who is this? And you go back and have to reread because it was so detailed that they set this up earlier.
Absolutely. There's a lot of that in this. It's just a well-written one all
Yeah,
around.
it absolutely is. Then we do another jump, and on the next page we get a half-page spread that says night falls and the body count rises. Apparently our fake Batman has been busy. Man, this art on this page is just stellar. I mean, you can see all the bits and pieces of broken glass that were, from the plate glass window. You can see the blood dripping down the wall. You can see a piece of glass sticking out of the guy's arm. And to me, the implication is where that blood is dripping down by his neck, there's a piece of glass sticking up there and it's shoved in his neck.
Definitely the most gruesome one. Just gruesome panel in general that I've seen out of a Batman comic so far. And it, like you said, it conveys so much. But the main thing I got out of this too was just it also kind of conveys sloppiness, which I think this other Batman is.
Yeah,
Right? He's throwing people through windows, he's killing people, he's leaving a mess. Like that's not necessarily what Batman does.
you're right. I hadn't thought about that, but you're 100%. That's just another indication that this is not the real Batman. Then we see Barnes telling Gordon that the media is saying that Gordon is shielding Batman, and Gordon insists that he is not. And then a reporter asks what happened, and Gordon explains that there was a liquor store robbery in progress when Batman came along and snapped the robber's neck. I'm like, snapped his neck? He went through a plate glass window and got a piece of glass in his neck. But they'll address that in a minute, as Batman threw the guy through the plate window, for good measure.
Brutal and sloppy.
On the next page, Gordon says the liquor store owner was mildly annoyed that Batman had put the robber through the plate glass window. But Gordon says he recognizes the perp who walked away from the fatal shooting of a convenience store manager the previous year. The robber got off on a technicality of police brutality. Here's my surprised face at Gotham cops. Scratch that. Any cops being brutal to suspect.
There's just no historical basis for it, It's just never
Yeah,
happened before.
yeah, no, of
Yeah.
course not. The cop's name who got the collar was Tommy Karma. Karma. Get it? Nice pun there, Max Allan Collins. In the last panel, we see the reporter was Batman in disguise, which I didn't catch that right away. And while I was reading this, I was thinking it was kind of odd that Gordon was speaking to the media about an ongoing investigation, but that actually explains everything. They had to make it look good for Barnes.
Totally missed it. I
Oh,
didn't catch it at all. I
that
guess
Batman was the
I looked at
reporter?
this. Yeah, it's so obvious now that I'm looking at it, and I took time to appreciate all the artwork in this issue, and I somehow just overlooked that. I thought he was just talking to a reporter. That's funny.
I think what really sells it, and it is subtle, so you may not pick up on it right
The
away.
last
You
panel.
didn't, but yeah, that last panel that shows the reporter's clothes and the reporter's mask laid out on the ground with Batman's shadow and Gordon on the other side. That's like the Batman's ears are even pointing right at the reporter.
I think I got a little caught up on the karma connection
Mm.
and ended up actually flipping back a page uh,
Ah.
to kind of learn more about that whole thing. But yeah, I missed that little tidbit. That's very interesting.
And again, this is one of the reasons I love doing the show, because when I sit down and discuss an issue with somebody else, they notice things I don't notice, I notice things they don't notice, and we're both more enriched for having this discussion about what's in the comic. That's why I like comics so much and talking about them. It's fun.
Absolutely. Right on that with you.
Well, next we cut back to the Batcave where Jason asks Batman why he can't come. Jason is constantly whining. Batman tells him it's too dangerous, and Jason whines about it some more, but finally accepts that he can't go. Meanwhile, Batman tells Jason more about Tommy Karma. Karma was a Golden Gloves boxer, black belt in karate, a former Marine, and a man with a good reason to hate crime. Apparently, Tommy got mixed up with the mob and then killed his wife and 6-year-old daughter. Which, I don't know how familiar you are with The Punisher, but that sounds a lot like The Punisher's origin story, which at this time had been established. I think Max Allan Collins may have nicked that part of the story from Marvel.
I was gonna say this guy had some other career opportunities. I'm not really sure why he chose a life of vigilantism, but I guess that could be said for Batman as well. So
The next we see Batman cruising around at midnight. We know that this is the real Batman because he is in the Batmobile. Batman is checking out Karma's place of employment to see if he possibly has an alibi and isn't the fake Batman running around. Batman really dislikes the fact that it's a former cop who is impersonating him. We find out Karma has switched shifts with another security guard, and Batman is a hero to Karma. The security guard says he won't call the cops on Batman because he is happy that Batman is killing criminals. Honestly, kind of gross, but whatever. The security guard offers up Karma's address if Batman wants it. Seems awfully nice of him to do that.
yeah, he's got another little friend in him, just like Commissioner Gordon.
So next we switch to Batman standing outside Karma's mom's house where Karma lives. Like these switch ups, which are happening a lot in this issue, are you having an easier time following them?
Oh, most definitely.
Okay.
There's a natural flow that I think I just had to kind of get to know and
Sure.
understand a little bit.
No, that totally makes sense. Batman knocks on the door, and Karma's mom lets him in, calling him son. She says she's glad he is home to talk to his old mom. It also appears mom has been drinking, as we see glass with amber liquid and ice in it next to the bottle.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's the confirmation Batman needed. Hello,
Yep.
son. Now it's just information gathering.
And now that you've kind of pointed out that, I'm going to call it the Starlin face, we definitely see the
It's
Starlin
everywhere.
face on Karma's mom.
I think that's the biggest example in this comic of the return of that face is the mom.
Yeah.
The starkest example, at least. One thing I want to bring up in this page is again just the art contrast, the angles, the view from inside the house. I think is the strongest part. It's such a natural angle. Nothing really seems out of place or incorrectly sized. I love it.
Yeah, and it's such a mundane situation. And because of all the detail, it takes just that mundane situation of being inside somebody's house with their giant TV screen, the table, the tablecloth, the presumably apples on the table. It's all very basic and mundane, but because Starlin took the time to put all of that detail into it, it takes this mundane thing and just elevates it to a whole new level.
Absolutely. It adds a layer of realism to it. Like
Yeah,
this is a real house. These are real people.
yeah, I like that. It does. It makes it more real and kind of takes you into the story a little bit more. You're able to visualize better, maybe this could look similar to the inside of your house.
Absolutely.
So then we see Karma's mom ask him not to get mad for drinking. She knows the doctor doesn't want her to drink, but she has to decompress after working at the old folks' home. She goes on to try and convince Karma that impersonating Batman is wrong, no matter how much Karma worships Batman. Mom even mentions that Karma named his little girl, the one who was killed by the mob, Robin. And that actually kind of got to me a little bit. Whenever I was reading this, I was like, man, that's sad that, you know, it humanized the man's daughter a little more for me and gave me some insight into who the man is. Like, Batman's my hero. I love him so much that I named my daughter after his sidekick.
Absolutely. And I think it drives home a common theme I see in a lot of these Batman issues, which is like there's it, evil isn't always just evil. Sometimes it's situational and created. broken men or terrible situations, and that's what I get from Carm here. Is he's just a broken man. He doesn't have any answers, and he's collapsing kind of in
Yeah,
on
and
himself.
I think that's a common theme in Gotham in general. I mean, kind of when we started talking about this, before we even did our first episode, I was like, Gotham is just a dark and nasty place, and there's very little hope in that place. And this comic book just really helps emphasize that. There's just no hope, and it's driven this man over the edge, who presumably, it seems like he was a pretty good man before his family got killed.
Absolutely.
And then what is this? It's a comic book. It's supposed to be fun, and it's got me feeling emotions. What the hell, Batman? I shouldn't feel emotions while reading a Batman comic.
This one
um,
definitely had some pretty heavy tones in it.
it
I
did.
felt that as well.
Then we see that Mom passes out, and Batman proceeds to the basement, where he finds way too many newspaper clippings about Batman's deeds going back for years. There's also a makeshift Batcave with computer, police band radio, and makeshift crime lab. Batman thinks Karma thinks that he is really Batman. Batman muses that maybe if he, real Batman, confronts Karma Batman, that he will snap out of it. Then Batman notices not all the newspaper clippings are about him. He sees a clipping about a murderer who has walked free on a technicality. That seems to keep coming up over and over again.
Probably my favorite page in the whole thing. I really appreciate just every little bit of detail and the foreshadowing, right?
Yeah.
Next page, we're going to get on to the snuffer, and you can read all about him on this page.
Yep.
The little newspaper clippings are there, depending on how deep you want to get into it, or you can stay surprised and continue on to the next page. I thought it was a really cool little bit of foreshadowing and detail.
And this page talking about Snuffer is actually something I missed. I was more focused on the left side where it's talking about a murderer who walks and evidence ruled inadmissible. That was my focus, especially because Batman was pointing to it. But you're 100% right about Snuffer. Man, I missed that one. Good call.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool.
So I did have a question for you. When Batman was transitioning down to the basement, did you understand that that's what was happening based on the one panel where you see him taking this, his foot on the steps and he's obviously going down?
I think I pegged movement, like he was walking somewhere, but I don't know that I knew it was like a basement
Okay.
necessarily.
Okay, because when I was reading it, and again, I just because I've been reading comics for decades, I knew exactly what was happening, and I find it interesting to ask what you perceived as a new reader because I just don't have that perspective anymore, and I find it interesting how this looks to new readers and how it reads to new.
I don't think I really considered it that much, honestly. I think I was like, oh, he moved to another room.
Hmm.
So it's interesting that you even pointed out because I don't think I had any idea.
Okay. Next, we cut to fake Batman climbing in Commissioner Gordon's window. Fake Batman tells Gordon he knows that there is a mob hitman called Snuffer. And, at this point, I point out in my notes, could that nickname be any more on the nose? I'm calling out the writer here in a good natured way for bad writing on that nickname. In the last panel, we see on the page that Snuffer is being told to stay away from the window by the cops sitting around playing cards, as Snuffer asks to be dealt in.
Kind of a loose prison, right? Wouldn't you think? I also noticed all the cops are just hanging out playing cards with their guns on their belts. Like,
I took this to be a safe house. They're keeping him for witness
okay,
protection.
that's right. You know what? You're absolutely correct. That's delved into pretty well. But I still think, maybe like handcuff him to a radiator if you're gonna have guns on you and turn your back to him and play cards. You know,
Yeah, it's possible the criminal might not be telling the truth. Although I guess he's already turned state's witness, so and they're there to protect him, not to
hold him captive, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah, not to hold him. They're there to protect him, not to hold him.
fair enough.
One other thing I did want to mention on this page is that we see when Batman climbs in the window, Gordon automatically assumes it's his friend Batman. And then once Batman starts talking, Gordon realizes that that's not who it is, which is just a small little detail, but it's one that I really appreciated because, when you watch the Batman comics or the Batman movies, Bruce Wayne talks one way, and then Batman talks a different way. He's adds some gravel to his voice. He makes his voice deeper, and to help disguise who he is. And I really appreciate the fact that the implication that until Batman talked, Commissioner Gordon didn't know that wasn't Batman.
That could have been a disguise.
On the next page, we see fake Batman suddenly crashes through the window and swiftly knocks out the surprised cops. Snuffer offers information he didn't give to the feds and a cut of his money hidden away in Switzerland if Batman will spare his life. Really good action scene
Punching
on this page.
cops.
Say again?
Punching cops. That was my only comment.
There's a really cool new Batman story that they're doing right now where Batman is being framed as a cop killer. It's a modern, they just released a new issue of it yesterday, I think. It's interesting because some of the cops are hating on Batman, and, when they're trying to hurt him, he does have to use some violence against them. So it's not unheard of for Batman to punch a cop.
All right. Good to know going forward. Cops around the table.
And especially in Gotham, where you're dealing with at least a third of the police force, maybe even as high as 2/3, are corrupt.
Dirty city.
Yep. And then the action sequences on here are really good. You can see that implied movement. You can see, somebody getting punched square in the face. All around good art, good coloring again. Everything looks just like I would expect it to.
Really strong backgrounds throughout. I even really like the bottom right panel where that window's angled, and thought there were some cool artistic choices there.
Yeah, you're right. I hadn't really picked up on that, but you're absolutely right. The way it's angled and how almost like Snuffer's head is going past the window frame, like it's breaking the wall there. That's really cool.
I think it's just really well worked into it, and it just adds that sense of looming. I think they were going for.
Yeah, Batman looks scary there. Then fake Batman drops the Snuffer out the window. Real Batman saves the Snuffer. Snuffer thanks real Batman, but Batman tells him to STFU and says he almost wishes he had let the Snuffer fall. Rescuing him was the most disgusting thing real Batman had done in a long time.
I vibe with that. Absolutely. Dude sounds like a jerk, and he's a murderer.
He is, but
Batman did what was right.
He did, but at the same time, I wonder, Batman gave Robin the speech about valuing life. And if we go back a couple of issues to the Magpie issue that you read, Magpie was killing people. Magpie was hurting people. Magpie was clearly insane. Batman treated her with a higher level of respect than he did this criminal. I have a little problem. It's different writers is what it is in all reality. But I have a little bit of a problem squaring these two versions of Batman, if that makes sense.
I think I can, in my mind at least. I'm maybe not convince you, but Magpie seemed more like a mental health thing, right? Which requires a softer touch. This guy's just, give me money and I'll kill someone, right? Which I think is objectively more disgusting.
That's fair. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So, maybe.
I'm down with Batman's reaction now that you put it that way. You're absolutely right. Next, we have a night fight. Yet this is taking place 4 decades before DCKO. Fake Batman is big mad that real Batman saved Snuffer. Fake Batman questions why real Batman is dressed like fake Batman. Real Batman tells fake Batman he has it backwards. That this again makes fake Batman big mad. Fake Batman continues to insist he is the real Batman. And you know what? I did that in one take. You try saying Batman that many times in one take and see how you do.
Honestly impressive. Yeah, this is my first Batman on Batman violence. It's pretty awesome. They're kicking each other's butts.
Next, Robin shows up, but he's not supposed to be there. Real Batman says, Robin? With a question mark. Fake Batman says, Robin is a statement. Fake Batman is thinking of his family and gets distracted. This gives real Batman a chance to knock out fake Batman. One punch. Batman and Robin have a nice little exchange, and then the book is over.
Initial thought on this page? PTSD wins again. Really, this guy just started having a flashback, and Batman seized the moment and knocked him the hell out.
Batman is written as a master tactician. There's a meme on the internet that says Batman can defeat anybody in combat as long as he has time to prepare. And I appreciate that they show his quick thinking as a tactician. Obviously, the guy's distracted. Okay, time to knock him out.
He's also, not impervious, though. As we see in kind of like the lower panels there. He broke some ribs. Fake Batman got in a couple of good punches.
He
So
did.
while planning helps, it may not be infallible.
That's one of the things I actually really like about Batman is he's human. I said before, his superpower is money. And that's really all he has. And he's really smart. But neither of which is at an inhuman level.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed this issue overall. I think Starlin, Collins, Danza, all awesome work. I really enjoyed this one. The morals, the moral conundrums. This one has stuck out the most to me so far.
Yeah, it's probably the best one we've read so far for sure. One other thing I did want to say before I give my impression of the overall issue is I really appreciate how the ears are constantly breaking the panels. Like throughout all, the whole top portion of this page, the ears are they're above the panels on the top one. In the middle there, the ears are breaking into the top panel. In the one punch, the ears are going one direction out of the panel, and the guy's like top portion of his head and the ears are completely out of the panel. Really good panel work by Jim Starlin, and this is one of the things I like about the comics medium is that you have the lines that you're supposed to color inside, and they're like, nah, we're gonna break those lines. And it looks
Breaking
cool.
expectations and breaking out of the boxes, right? I think it's a metaphor of all the things that this issue's doing, right? It's just something a little bit different.
Yeah, and it gives it a 3D quality too. That you don't need 3D glasses or special television. You can see this guy as he's getting punched out flying towards you because of the overlapping in the panel breaks.
I love it. I'll just continue to glaze this artwork. It's phenomenal.
Exactly. In my opinion, this issue wasn't too bad. It did have an interesting story and it did some really cool foreshadowing. We kind of talked about that throughout the book. And honestly, as a single issue, this is probably about as good as you're going to get, without having a multiple arc story. As we talked about during the whole book, the art is what really did it for me in this book. It was detailed in all the right places. I did make a note that the faces were well drawn and easy to read the emotions on, but Bryce has now ruined that for me. And yeah, we have the Starlin face, so I guess I'll take back that little comment.
At least he draws it really well.
He does.
10 times per issue.
Yep.
Yeah.
Honestly, for me, the story was a bit on the basic side. I kind of also don't like how this Batman seems a little more right-wing than the current Batman. Like, I get Batman works with the cops all the time. So he has a lot of respect for them. He's always going to be a little right-wing. But him calling the criminals lice, that really stuck out to me, and it felt kind of shitty. Like, Batman was being kind of shitty. But you know what? He's a human. He can be shitty sometimes. And then you also pointed out how bad some of those people really are versus more the people who are just having mental health issues. So that softens the blow for me a little bit. But also, we have to remember the context of the times where the story was being written. This was in the middle of Reagan's war on crime, Reagan's war on drugs, Reagan's war on AIDS, Reagan's war on Nicaragua and Afghanistan. And, well, it's probably easier to list the things that Reagan wasn't having a war on at this point. But the point being, the country at this point was, at this point in time, kind of like how it is now, was in a very right-wing place, and the writer was really leaning into all of those things.
Totally, right? History usually rhymes, and you see capitulation when the government turns right wing. You'll see small businesses do it as well. Big businesses, media companies like Paramount, things like that. So I'm not at all surprised to see politics from the current time when this was written bleed into the storyline. If anything, it's more telling of where the author was at, where the world was at.
Yep.
So
And politics have always been a part of comics. Like, the X-Men was originally a not so veiled commentary on how Americans were treating black people at the time. They put mutants in place of the black people, so it wasn't quite so overt, but basically you would just take the racism against the black person and change the black person portion to being a mutant, and then all of those people who might be racist against black people are going, why are you hating on the mutants? There's nothing wrong with them. And, hopefully, maybe as they went along, learning a little something about it. Some comics do that. I don't know. This comic just, it struck me that Batman was, like I say, a little more right wing than I would like. But overall, it wasn't terrible.
a little bit more callous, but I was intrigued the entire time and enjoyed the story enough to overlook some of those shortcomings.
Overall, and I did originally rate this higher, and then Bryce pointed out the faces. I'm going to give this book a 2.3 out of 5 fake Batmans. I honestly feel that, the Starlin face aside, the art really carried this book. The story was good. I'm not saying the story was bad, but the art was definitely the superstar here. What about you, Bryce?
So my scale's different, absolutely different, because I just don't have the same context to
Hmm.
compare it to as you. So in comparison to the last two Batman stories, this is going to be more like a right. My scale's going
Hmm.
to continue to grow and change
Sure.
as I learn and I read more, but it's up there. There's some things that are left to be desired, but the artwork carries it through. I also want to give it points for the just sheer amount of foreshadowing that's in the book, right? Between like the snuffer and the cop stuff, to protect and serve. I thought it was well written. So, we'll knock a point off for the faces. We'll call it 3.9.
Okay.
3.9 out of 5 fake Batmans.
Cool. And you know what? It's okay if we disagree. The other half of the show that I do with Cookie, just a couple of days ago, we recorded an episode, and he and I completely disagreed on the rating of the comic, and we've both been reading comics for decades. So it's okay to have disagreements. That's the fun of comics. You can disagree with your friends, and they're still your friends afterwards.
Totally. Yeah. And overall, I enjoyed it. Most of all, I enjoyed hanging out with you.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
great
It's so
comic.
much fun.
Now that we wrapped up, I want to just say thank you to everyone joining us tonight. We're really glad to have you here with us watching. We do this for the love of the game and the love for the comics medium.
For sure. Please join us on Patreon, where we have our Post Crisis Chat book club for our members. We let our patrons get their say on the book, and we'll read some of those comments on the channel when we record.
Also, don't forget to check the description for links to our Amazon affiliate page. You can pick up the book we're currently reading tonight, which is going to be Batman Year 1 and Year 2, which I've been loving having a physical copy of in various formats. You click our Amazon affiliate link to make the purchase. A little bit of those proceeds go back to us and the channel, but it doesn't cost you a dime extra.
Yes, that's so true. The money that we do get for the channel is going to go back towards getting better camera, better lighting, improving the channel as best we can. So, but also you can follow us on Blue Sky. The link is in the description. We'll be announcing there when we post new episodes. And also, if you could give this video a like, give the channel a subscribe, comment on the video as soon as you see it. Those things will really help support and grow the channel. I don't think we've settled on a sign-off phrase yet. You got anything?
Um, yeah. Thanks for joining us tonight, and I can't wait for the next crisis.
Very nice. Thanks for joining us.